I don't have a box today. So, yeah, you want to be here for this. Well, so our story today comes from a picture book by Pat Brisson, and it goes like this. Wanda was on her way to school one day when she passed an empty lot, a vacant lot. And as she was walking past it, she noticed something that you or I might have just walked past, but it caught Wanda's eye. It was a bush. It was a bush that was brown and thorny and looked dead. But to Wanda, who loved beautiful things, it looked like a rose bush. She was convinced that it was a rose bush. And with enough love and care, roses would bloom on this rose bush. But Wanda had to get to school. So later that day, on the way home from school, she went back to the lot and started to clear the trash away to give the rose bush some sunlight so that it could grow and bloom. Mrs. Abrams was walking past the lot, pushing her baby in a stroller, and she saw Wanda and she said, "Wanda, are you cleaning up the lot?" Wanda said, "Well, yes, Mrs. Abrams, I am. I'm cleaning it up because there's this rose bush here, and I want to make sure that it has enough sunlight to grow." Mrs. Abrams said, "Wanda, I don't think that's a rose bush." Wanda said, "Well, I've seen pictures of rose bushes, and this looks just like it. So I'm pretty sure this is a rose bush." Mrs. Abrams said, "Okay, Wanda," and she kept walking. The next day, Wanda stopped back at the lot, and sadly, the rose bush had not yet blossomed. So Wanda thought maybe it just needed a little more space to grow. Maybe it needed a little more air. So she continued to clean around the rose bush. She continued to pick the weeds that grew around the base of the rose bush. Mr. Bradley, whose apartment overlooked the empty lot, saw Wanda working, and he yelled down to her and he said, "Wanda, are you cleaning up the lot?" Wanda said, "Yes, Mr. Bradley, there's a rose bush here, and I want to make sure it has room to grow." Now, even from the window, Mr. Bradley could tell that that was not a rose bush. But he didn't want to disappoint Wanda, so he said, "Oh, that's such a nice thing to do. That's so kind of you." And he let her continue her work. The next day, Wanda stopped back at the lot, and still, there were no blossoms on her rose bush. She wasn't sure what to do, so she decided she needed to stop at the library and see what the librarian, McCherry, had to say. Maybe there were some books about roses, about cultivating roses, that Wanda could consult to see what was going on. She asked McCherry, and they showed her the horticulture section of the library. They suggested that maybe Wanda water the rose bush, since roses famously need a lot of water to grow. Wanda hadn't considered this. So she went running to the bakery, which was next to the lot, and asked Ms. Duncan for a pitcher of water for the roses. Ms. Duncan, a flower lover herself, asked Wanda if she could come with her to see the rose bush. When they got there, Ms. Duncan said, "Oh, Wanda dear, that is not a rose bush. That's a thorn bush." Wanda said, "But it could be a rose bush." Ms. Duncan watered the thorn bush and walked away. Several weeks passed, and all the adults got a letter in their mailbox one day. The letter was an invitation, and on it was written in beautiful handwriting, "Please come to the lot tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for a rose blossom party. Love, Wanda." Now, Mrs. Abrams, Mr. Bradley, Mix Cherry, and Ms. Duncan knew that there would be no rose blossoms tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. or really any time thereafter on that bush in the lot, but they did not want to disappoint Wanda. So that morning, the next morning at 10 a.m., they all showed up, and there was Wanda with a big smile on her face, standing next to the rose bush. It was covered with beautiful paper flowers that she had made herself. Wanda's smile grew even bigger when she saw that each of the adults was carrying a rose plant, a rose bush, to plant in the lot next to Wanda's rose bush. And Ms. Duncan brought muffins from the bakery to share. They spent the rest of the morning